Hi, this is Merrisa, and I am bringing you your very last update for the INC4. So, yesterday, as you all may now know, marked the very last day of the INC4, and we actually spent the first half of the day consolidating all of the member states' positions within the contact groups, so that the co-facilitators of the contact groups could actually prepare their reports based on all of the outcomes that have been discussed so far over the last 7 days. We were then, called into plenary to receive the reports from the co-facilitators on the outcomes of the both contact groups. So just to maybe recap a little bit, contact group 1 focused on the core obligations of the treaty, everything from, targets on primary plastic polymers to chemicals of concern, to problematic and avoidable plastics, just transition, legacy plastics. That was the main discussions for the first contact group. And then the second contact group really focused on means of implementation for the treaty, capacity building, technology transfer, and technical assistance and support. So the plenary session was rather interesting yesterday, and it actually went on into the late hours, or rather the early hours of today morning, finishing off at almost 4 a.m. So we really had intense discussions during plenary. But for the first half of the plenary, we received the co-facilitators' reports, and basically we now have 5 outcome papers, non-papers rather, that will be used as the starting point of discussions and negotiations for the INC5 when we get to Busan, South Korea. And that will now be taken forward as our starting point for the INC5. Having received those reports from the co-facilitators, member states were then invited by the INC chair to actually reflect their thoughts once again on how we go forward for this intercessional period now between INC4 and INC5 in order for us to make progress on substantive matters. So, as per my recap yesterday, the INC chair's proposal for intercessional work was to focus on the resources and the means of implementation for the treaty as one component of the intercessional work, but to also focus on addressing problematic and avoidable plastics and chemicals of concern. So developing criteria during this intercessional period for those plastic products that we could eventually look at phasing out or having better design standards for. So with that in mind, what had happened was the INC chair opened the floor up for member states to give their reflection on this proposal, as he had done in the previous plenary. But unfortunately, it started a rather robust round of discussions that saw us going in through to the early hours of this morning. And after an intense period of negotiations, we were finally able to get member states to come to a compromise on intercessional work, moving forward with the chair's proposal that has some amendments to the language around how they will negotiate on those 2 proposals by the chair for intercessional work. We must bear in mind that there was also a rather unfortunate turnaround of events during the plenary session, with many countries actually recalling or withdrawing, maybe even conceding their positions on having to discuss primary plastic polymers for intercessional work. So in the plenary before this one, we had seen almost 53 to 56 countries showing their support to discuss primary plastic polymers as a topic for intercessional work, and showing their support for the Peru-Rwanda proposal on this. But in the end, we had only 5 countries, including Peru and Rwanda, making that 7 countries, actually saying that they will still continue to support that to be discussed in intersessional work. But because the majority of those 50 odd countries had conceded in the spirit of compromise, we did not really get a mandate to discuss primary plastic polymers within the intersessional work period. So that was a little, I wouldn't say a little bit, but rather very disappointing for member states. And it also maybe begs the question as to what happened really between the plenary that took place the day before and the plenary that took place yesterday. What really went on during that time that made several member states, including the EU, which spoke on behalf of 27 member states, to actually include primary plastic polymers and the reduction of it as a talking point, and discussing that during the intersessional period. It really makes us wonder. We only had Micronesia, Israel, Guinea, Senegal, Rwanda, and Peru still calling for this to be discussed. So that might have been lost for now, but we are still hopeful that we will continue to have robust discussions on this when we do come to INC5, because this target on primary plastic polymers still remains on the table for discussions at INC5. It was also rather encouraging to continue to see the African group of negotiators wanting the inclusion of civil society organizations to be as partners, key partners during the intersessional period. However, despite their significant number of calls for this during the plenary session yesterday, it is now left up until the chair for him to decide and consider whether CSOs will actually have a seat at the table during the intersessional period. And that is all I have to share with you. And I'm hoping that all of the recaps up until now has really given you key insights into what has really been happening on the ground here in Ottawa, Canada. And that's all for this INC. We'll be sure to see you in Busan, but on the sidelines, we will be working very hard during this intersessional period.